Hi guys, it's Jo here from Time for Tea Designs with another video. Today's video will be featuring the Furreakingly Good Halloween Digi stamps, which are available in store now. And we'll be making some treat bags using those Digi stamps. And this We Are Memory Keepers gift bag punch. I've had this for quite a while and never used it, so I thought this would be the ideal opportunity. And I've just downloaded some Halloween themed papers from the Jessica Sprague website. These are Echo Park, Halloween and Halloween Town, I believe. And the instructions are all inside, but I'll just talk you through what I'm doing. This is an A4 size piece of paper, and they come in the sizes small, medium to large. But they can be as tall as you like, depending on the size of your paper. So as you go along, you do a series of score lines and punches. So you can see there, I've just been scoring around the little triangle notch there, and punched and then slid my my paper along so that my score line is lined up with the start mark that's on the panel. And again, punch, move it across, punch again, and then use the score lines to make your marks determined by the size that you're going for, either the small, medium or large. And then a final punch at the end will just create all of your tabs that will form the base of your bag. Now I'm just snipping that off because that didn't punch quite so neatly, and then cutting a little tab at the end. This will form the area where we will apply adhesive. Folding now along all the score lines that we've made, and then it'll make sense now, the score lines that we made, as some of those were to create the sides of the box, some of them were to create the front and back panel of the box. I'm just lining this up now to make sure that all my folds are neat and that it will lay flat. And then I was just checking the size that I wanted my box to be. So applying some adhesive down the side there, and then folding that together will mean that then just creates the perfect box shape. You can see that's starting to take shape now. The tabs at the bottom, I'm just folding these apart, and on the larger tabs I'm applying my adhesive so that when I put all the tabs together, these will stick to the smaller tabs, and then my base will be nice and secure. So just pushing those together, and then using the score tool that comes with the punch, just to make sure that that's all stuck at the bottom. And again, just finding it easier to just place that down and then use my score tool to put that in. Now the little triangle creates the little concertina at the side so that it sits like a traditional little sweetie bag. So I'm just flattening all those score lines down so that it works correctly. And then using a little cutting board there just to create the size of bag that I want. So you can see here that you can use that really quickly and easily to make whatever size box you want. And before you adhere your sides together, you could also create a little hole there so that you can create a little window in your box if you wanted to as well. So we're moving on now to my images, which I've printed on my normal inkjet printer. And I've used my Copic colour chart there just against my papers, just to decide what colours I'm going to use. And you can see across the top there, I've just listed the colours that I'm using for the cats. I'm going to be making 5 boxes today, so all in all I'll be colouring in 5 cats, but I'm just going to show you 3 at the moment. These 3, I've decided to use 3 different mixes of grey, just so that you can get an idea of the different tones and the different effects that using different grey combinations can make. So this first combination are my cool greys, and usually what I would use actually to colour in cats or animals. So I'm using C1, C3, C5 and C7. I've covered all of my image initially in the C1, and I'm then building up my colour from the sides in the darker shades. So C3 first, then moving on to C5. And then finally, when it comes to the C7, you can see that I'm just creating some little stripes, just so that that creates a little bit of texture to the cat, so he's not just a flat image. I've left the center point of the cat very light, so that again creates a little bit of dimension. Moving on to the cat's clothes, I've used just some really simple colour in here because it's only very small images, and the green tones that I'm using are my my YG03, YG23 and YG63, and I just used a little dash of pink in his ears with an RV13, and that's just finished him off there. So moving on to the second kitty, so this cat I've done in the tonal greys, so T1, T3, T5 and T7, and you can see already that it's a little bit of a warmer type of grey, and I've decided that I would try and create some shade on the left hand side with the light appearing from the right to try and give a different look to this chap. So you can see there I'm just applying the darker shades one after the other, blending them through then over the top with the lighter shades, just using really light flicking motion to bring all my colour into the centre of the cat's face or the centre of the cat's body, and creating darker lines around the limbs, so where the shade would be behind the legs, behind the paws, and underneath the hat, and underneath the collar of his cape. With this one, the same thing. I've used the T7 just to create some little stripes, and then using T5 and T3 and moving down the colours then just to blend those in, so there's a bit more of a seamless look to it. I've also it was very quick there because I've speeded this up just to save time. I used the blender pen just to create some tiny little dots where whiskers would be. And I use a similar sort of thing when I'm colouring girls to create little freckles. And if you just leave the blender pen on, just the very tip, ever so slightly, it just creates the loveliest little freckles. So I've done that for each of the cats here. And for the cat's clothes, this one I'm just emulating the orange that will be in the papers as well. So the orange colours that I've chosen to use are YR2, YO4 and YR7. And I will list all of these on my blog post later on this evening, as well as on a Copic colour map that I will add to my Pinterest board as well later today. So moving on to the third of the cats, you can see now that already there is a real difference in colour, yet they're all done in different tones of grey. Having said that, this cat is part of the blue violet family, but still creates a really lovely dark colour. And actually, when we get to the next part of the video, some of the backgrounds that I'll be using, very similar sort of colours, so he goes really well. And for this guy, I just kept it really simple because there were only two colours that I was using, so the BV23 and the BV25, again, just keeping it lighter in the centre of his face, darker around the edges, darker underneath his hat and underneath the collar of his cape. And for the cape, I'm using some of the more sort of aqua colours. I'm using a BG23 and the BG 32 for that, and again just two colours there, so keeping my shading very, very simple, starting with the lighter of those two colours. And because there is a bit of a difference between them, I'm using the tip to tip technique just to help blend through some of that shading. Again, I'm going dark around the outside, lighter in the middle to create that shape, that kind of cone shape on the hat. And darker on the underneath the cape, where it would create shadow behind the cat's body. And then just for a little bit of extra interest, just because it was very simple, I thought I would add some dots with my jelly roll pen. So I'm applying my whiskers with that on this particular cat so that you can see the difference, and that does show better in photographs at the end. But also adding a few dots to the outfit, and some highlights to each of the cat's faces and eyes. So moving on to some of the other little characters that are part of the set. We've got here the bat, and I'm doing a few of the bats, although in the end I only end up using one of the bats. The pumpkin and the broom. I use more than the images that in the final bags here, but I've coloured them all exactly the same, so I didn't want to bore you by colouring them all as part of this, but just so you get an idea of how that's been done. I've used the BV23 and BV25 again to colour in my bats, so they've all been coloured the same. Started with the lighter colour to create a base, and then using the darker of those two colours just to create shadow, so just around the outside of the bat's face, so that it's much lighter in the middle, and that again creates that shape. And then darker around the bat's body, and then at the base of some of those folds in his wings. It's really hard to tell on here, but you'll be able to see in the pictures later on that you can still see the definition of the face. I'll also be adding at the end some white jelly roll to highlight his fangs and his eyes. So the pumpkin, really easy. The YR02, the YR04 and YR07, just building up that colour again to create that round shape, and then using the E34 and E35 for the stalk and for the handle of my broom. And then to create the straw of the broom, it's just Y35, Y38 and Y28. And again, just keeping it light around the middle, and then using the darker colours at the point where there would be more shade. So like I said, I'm just adding some of the jelly roll pen here for the fangs, and then just to highlight the eyes, and then a little bit of highlights around the wings just so that they stand out a little bit more. And those guys are finished. So moving on to my background now, and I'm going to be doing quite a bit of blending, so I've fast forwarded through this, just really sped it up for you so that you don't have to see it all. And I'm creating a bit of a galaxy background here. So the inks that I'm using are the Tim Holtz Distress inks, and I'm using Dusty Concord and the Weathered Wood to begin with, and just using my blending tool to really blend this as much as I can. It looks horrendous at this point, I know it looks, doesn't look smooth, but as we add in the Tuxedo Black Memento ink, which is the next stage, it really does start to look like a night sky, and you can see just the bit of blue and purple in the background just looks really nice. So once that's all completed, I've added a little bit of water, let that sit, and then pulled up some of the excess with a tissue. But it wasn't really giving me the night sky that I wanted. I wanted something with a bit more white in the background to look like stars. So I've taken some acrylic white ink and just using a brush to splatter that onto my background, and just tapping the brush a little bit more has created some bigger spots. And I was really pleased with how that turned out in the end. So the next bit of the process then is the fun bit. We've got all our elements together, and now we can start really creating our bags. So this is where I get to just decide, right, which bit is going with which bag, and how do I want that all to look. So to save time, I've already cut out my images. I've backed them onto some cards so that they're a little bit more sturdy, and I've cut out my background sky using two nesting circle dies. I've also cut out of some vellum, some banner dies, so that I can layer these up onto the back of each of my bags. So like I said before, I've created 5 bags in different sizes using digital papers that I've downloaded from the Echo Park site, and now I'm just arranging each of those elements against each of the different size bags to see which works the best. I'm now going to adhere each of those with my tape runner. So adding just layering those up, adding the circle night sky to the blank circle, white circle there, and again the slightly larger background sky going onto this scalloped circle that I've just cut from some plain white cardstock. So adding these onto my background and layering each of these up so that I'm ready to then add my focal images on each of those, and I can work out then which of the cats will look better on each of the bags. So I quite liked the way that these like fishtails built up and created a rosette type effect. And now looking at which one of my sentiments is going to work along each of these. So I did adhere that too soon because I realised that I wanted my cat to sit behind it and the tail to hang behind the sentiment. So I had to do a little bit more repositioning to make that work. But I just checking now which of the cats, based on their sizes, fits with each of the different size bags. So once I've decided which cat goes with which bag, I'm now going through the process of adding each of the different elements, including the sentiments and any other additional elements. I'm attaching each of my images just with flat glue. I'm not using any further dimension, as I do have a lot of layers already, and I didn't want to add any more bulk. I'm also just trimming down some of my sentiments and then just stacking them up where it's appropriate on each of the bags, just because some of them are a little bit long to go across the bottom of the size bags that I've made. So you can see here now I'm just adding each of those, having to think about what goes where the best place is for balance. And I'm also switching up my my glue choice. So I've switched to the Cosmic Shimmer here because some of the elements were a little bit small and I was struggling to get my tape runner to go over each of those elements properly without getting in a bit of a sticky mess. So just adding my sentiment to that one, and now using the Cosmic Shimmer glue just to attach my cat and a pumpkin to this little bag, just keeping it nice and simple, but really cute. So you'll probably notice that this video is only just going up on Halloween. Hopefully some of you are still celebrating it out there. It's taken a really long time, ridiculous amount of time to get this video up and running. I've been putting different elements of it together over the last couple of weeks, and life has just got in the way. So every now and again I've been able to go back and do a little bit more, but I was determined I would get it up onto my channel today, right before all the festivities are over. So hopefully you still find this of use and enjoyable, even though Halloween is practically over here in the UK. Most of the trick-or-treaters have been and gone and are probably being put to bed now. But I do think that there are elements within here that you could use for other things, for party bags, for example, for children's parties, or even for Christmas coming up, for small gifts and treats. And the hopefully some of the colouring will be helpful when you're colouring other critters in the future. So thank you ever so much for watching today. If you have liked the video, then please do subscribe, hit the like button, and click the bell so that you're notified of any other videos in the future. Hopefully the next one won't take quite so long to produce. Thanks ever so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.